So I don't know if you know who this is. Lauren, I don't even know how to say her last name.
She's Jauregui.
She's very famous. She has 4.2 million followers. And she tweeted out something great. She said, "You all can be mad at me for telling the truth if you want. You can all vote, and you'll see plenty of content over the next few months of me letting you know voting Biden is a better option. But I stand by what I say. Politics will not save us. This is clearly not about the people." Wow, is she right? To be honest, I ain't even watching it. I know what it is, two completely incompetent, unqualified males debating which one has a bigger ego. Politics aren't going to save this nation. Look into local grassroots organizations and mutual aid programs and get to work if you want to see change. 35,000 likes. She says this is irresponsible. What? No, Lauren, what's irresponsible is thinking you're doing everything you can by just showing up to a voting booth once every 4 years. That's irresponsible. And she's not discouraging people from voting. She's just saying it's not going to save us, which is true. So, Lauren, please grow up. Here's another one. I don't know if you can read it. I'll read it for you. What she's saying is literally the truth, though. This election is important, but Biden won't save the country. Not fully. It's only the first step. There's a trillion more hurdles to get through for a better, more equitable world, and she knows that. Ignoring the bigger picture is ignorant. Philadelphia. So here's exactly what she's talking about. Here's a headline. Philadelphia Housing Action claims victory after 6-month direct action campaign forces the city to relinquish 50 vacant homes to Community Land Trust. What? Joe Biden didn't do that. You know who did that? A movement of people did that. Mm-hmm. What did they do? Well, in the largest self-organized housing takeover in the country, 50 homeless mothers and children are to remain in its 15 vacant city-owned homes. You mean they're not a bunch of anarchists throwing soup? It's mothers and children who are homeless in the richest country in the face of the earth has ever seen? And the city owns buildings that are empty? Philadelphia Housing Action and the city of Philadelphia reached a tentative agreement to resolve a month-long standoff over the fate of 2 homeless protest encampments and 15 vacant city-owned homes occupied by mothers and children. Under the agreement, the 50 vacant city-owned houses will be transferred into a community land trust set up by Philadelphia Housing Action, a coalition of housing activists who have all experienced either homelessness or institutionalization. The land trust will permanently designate the properties for use as extremely low-income housing, $25,000 and below, and be managed by local control committees. A recent Pew report states that 170,000 Philadelphia households earn $30,000 or less. So essentially, if we come together in communities, we can make housing a human right. Joe Biden's not going to do that. The people did that. It looks like direct action isn't the best option. It's not the best option to address our housing problem. It's the only option. Here's some more information from Democracy Now!
If you can talk about the significance of this victory and just in the bigger picture, we're talking about tens of millions of Americans face eviction. This is a key area that you focus on, Keeanga-Yamahtta Taylor.
Sure. I think this is tremendously significant. Not only is this a vindication of a strategy that was focused on direct action. People occupied, Tony sections of downtown Philadelphia. They refused to move. They acted in solidarity with each other. There are so many times over the last 2 months when the city threatened to shut down the camps, when the city threatened legal action against the organizers. And throughout that, people stood tall. They did not cave into the pressure, and they essentially called the city's bluff. And the city was reluctant to actually move in on the camp because Philadelphia has been a site of very large demonstrative protest around police brutality. There's a well-organized legal protection as well as activist networks in the city that I think created some pause and reluctance on the part of city officials. But I think even beyond its impact in Philadelphia, which I think is tremendous, there's a bigger lesson to be drawn here because this dynamic exists all over the country, where you have both empty housing and houseless people, a completely irrational expression of what American capitalism means. But even more perniciously, you have public housing authorities. Every city has one, which is either sitting on properties that they should be distributing to people in need of housing, but they are sitting on properties waiting for.
So you see, they have clear demands.
Yes.
The Community Land Trust for Permanent Low-Income Housing, their demands: stop selling public property to private developers, public accountability for city worker abuse and harassment, repeal camping ordinances within city limits, sanction the Parkway camp as a self-governed, self-funded, no-cop zone, stop terror tactics against the unhoused people, homeless sweeps, service day, etc., support self-sufficient tiny houses that are not funded by capitalist entities. They got clear demands.
Right price point to flip those properties for profit. And that is unconscionable for public housing authorities to be engaged in that kind of predatory, gentrifying behavior. And so what has happened here in Philadelphia is creating a model for what all tenant organizing and activist groups should be taking up, which is occupy the space, occupy the properties, and put pressure, political pressure, on public housing authorities to do their job and house people who are unhoused. It is not that complicated. We shouldn't be having empty housing and people without homes in the midst of a pandemic. At no time should we be having it, but we certainly should not be experiencing this in the midst of a pandemic. And I think that this is a model, a strategic model, and a tactic that should be generalized by housing groups across the country. Now is the time, I think, to move on this, because the emergency of housing insecurity is at its most acute point. But also, there's a greater connection being made between housing as healthcare, housing as a right, that has been demonstrated by the CDC's own moratorium.
Isn't it amazing, the richest country in the world, we can't house our own people? We can't give them health care, can't house them. So it's starting to pick up. It started here at this show. America is a failed state. A lot of other, I've noticed a few other YouTubers starting to pick up on that term. America is a failed state. America is a failed state. It cannot deliver the basic services to its own people. What are those, Jimmy? Health care? How about health care? How about housing? How about it can't educate people without making you go under a mountain of debt to Wall Street? We're a failed state. And voting for Joe Biden is going to fix absolutely nothing. When Joe Biden gets elected, guess what's going to happen the next day? Things are going to get a little worse. And a little worse the next day, and a little worse the next day, and a little worse the next day. Joe Biden's going to increase the military spending. Joe Biden militarized the cops. Joe Biden built those cages that kids are in. So this is people say. People like to say in Hollywood, mindless people in Hollywood who have no clue what's actually happening in politics at all like to say of me, they say, Jimmy he's just angry. He doesn't have any solutions. I have lots of solutions. Ranked choice voting, the People's Party, direct action, union action like what Chris Smalls is doing. I have lots of solutions. So people who say that are actually projecting because they have no solutions except vote for criminals, literal criminals, war criminals, regular criminals, racists. That's their solution. People who say Jimmy Dore doesn't have a solution, you know what their solution is? Vote for a racist to get rid of a racist. Vote for a warmonger to get rid of a warmonger. Vote for a pathological liar to get rid of a pathological liar. Vote for a guy who screws over workers for a guy who screws over workers. Go for a guy who put immigrants in cages for a guy who puts immigrants in cages. That's their solution. I've got solutions. Ranked choice voting, the People's Party, direct action, unions, general strike. I've got solutions. And anybody telling you I don't have solutions is another fucking liar, empty-headed moron who doesn't know what they're talking about and they're projecting. Ask them what their solution is. Is their solution is to vote for another racist, warmongering enemy of the people? That's your solution? It is, isn't it? You fucking dummy. That is your solution. Well, no, what's your solution? Jimmy Dore actually has solutions. You lazy thinker. That's the best thing I can say about you. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.